Hello, I'm Varsha Wallace, and this is Living Your One Precious Life. I'm particularly interested in those who do their day jobs alongside something else. Today, we're meeting Sally Lewis. Sally is an architect and urban designer who successfully set up a London practice called Stitch, but alongside this has set up a charity supporting less advantaged people to study architecture. And we're going to hear all about this. Hello, Sally.
Hello, Varsha. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
So we met through mutual friends, and you had just come over from South Africa. And when I met you, you just graduated from a master's in urban design. So I'd love to hear, how did you get to that point? How did you end up studying a master's in urban design at Oxford?
Well, interesting journey. So I was well entrenched in South Africa, being a 20-something qualified architect, had my first job, was doing really well. And I decided when I was about 27, 28 that something had shifted. So what I did was got married, which was a bit of a mistake. A year later, I thought, oh, something else needs to shift. This is not going very well. And I decided that I needed to just go somewhere else. So I was interested in the sort of bigger picture of architecture anyway, because I'm not the kind of architect that looks at buildings as being objects, like sort of shiny objects for everyone to look at. I'm much more interested in their role in making a place. I had a friend called Paul Weigers who had studied urban design at Oxford Brookes University, and he came back raving about it. So I thought, that's what I want to do. And then I applied for a scholarship, because there was a British Council scholarship that I was aware of. And because I needed it, because I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it without. So, and fortunately, I won the scholarship. So I went off to Oxford Brookes and studied urban design. And I think that's when I met you. I just finished that course, and I
remember you telling me you were interested in urban design because of the work that was happening in Durban at the port.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
So
my job was quite unusual. I was working in the port of Durban, in the harbour. So not too many years after the new South Africa, and my job was to redesign all the sort of workers' facilities to make them a little bit more humane, nicer place to sit and eat, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas before, they were just like brick boxes with tiny windows and really awful environments. So I suppose that got me more interested in the sort of environmental qualities of spaces that are more than just a building.
When you studied architecture, was your family supportive of you doing that?
My dad said at the beginning, when I said I wanted to study architecture, he said, oh no, I don't know any successful female architects. So we had this family friend who designed all the houses that my dad built, and that was his vision of an architect kind of thing. And so I had to, because he said that he would pay for 3 years, so I had to kind of go along with him. And so I did a year of law, but the whole time I was doing the year of law, I was researching female architects. I presented him with a list of famous female architects, and then he kind of backed down. But then I only had 2 years of my 6-year degree paid for. So I had to get bursaries and things like that for the rest of it. But yeah, he was, I think eventually he kind of acknowledged, maybe kind of, I don't know if he ever did, that girls could be architects.
The architects I know, you're all very, you have a real aptitude for the way things look. I don't know, it's that sense of space, the world around. Yeah. Do people have art backgrounds, or do you have maths backgrounds, or is it both?
It's quite interesting actually, because I think that anyone can study architecture, but it really helps if you. So I was good at English, art, and maths, so I could have really gone into anything. But architecture seemed to be the thing that brought everything together, and the English part of it and the sort of communication part of it is something I talk, because I do mentor and tutor quite a few younger people, so coming through university or thinking about studying architecture. And I always say that you need to be able to tell the story about your design. You can't just make a lovely design. You have to get people on board. So if you can't communicate, then you can have a lovely design that no one builds. So I think that there's a sort of real mix of skills in architecture. And I also say to a lot of students that you can do the first sort of undergrad degree in architecture and then go and do anything, because it teaches you to collaborate, think spatially, to bring all these skills together, and that they're all valuable for pretty much any job. So yeah, I think it's very general actually.
you went to Oxford to study urban design. What is urban design for people that don't know? Because I didn't know. When I met you, you explained it to me, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating because it wasn't something I'd ever heard. I didn't know people did this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's become much more mainstream, and sort of local authorities have an urban design officer. But that in those days, it was like, yeah, like what is urban design? It's basically it's about the relationship of buildings and spaces together. So if you're an architect, you often just think about the building and the site that's your building's on. But urban design considers the whole context and the streets and the neighborhoods that are being created by the various design projects that are going on. So it's a much more holistic view, and it's not really town planning, because town planning is much more kind of, this is what you can do on this land, whereas urban design is, this is how you should do things on this land. So that, I guess that would be, so if you walk down a street that you really like, you'll go, oh, this street is good, but you don't really know why it's good. And it's probably the proportions of the buildings to the street. It might be the width of the pavement. It might be how many trees there are. It might be how many windows are overlooking the street. It might be the variety of buildings or the uniformity of the buildings. So that there are all these kinds of qualities that make up a place that are much less easy to quantify. But there's also so many more stakeholders involved, to make a good place. You have to talk to so many people, whereas if you're just doing a house extension for one house, you're only talking to the people who live there. So it's much more, it's much more complicated, but much more rewarding at the same time.
And I suppose it's also about how people live. I remember when you first explained it to me that I think we were talking about tower blocks, and you were saying that often tower blocks are big blocks, but they take up as much space if they were laid flat, because often that communal space isn't designed for people to use in a way that they would like to, and we would all like to be able to use.
I remember drawing that diagram
space
for you. I think I drew the square, which is like a city block, and often there's a tower in the middle, and then all the space around it's kind of leftover space. And no one really uses it because it's not really owned. But if you put the buildings around the edge and made a courtyard in the middle that was defined and owned by the people who live there, then it makes for a better place for sure. Yeah, I remember drawing that. I think it might have been on a serviette in a pub somewhere.
yeah, exactly. And when you were a child, was there something that you wanted to do that still resonates with you today? Or
But I did come from a family of enthusiasts about building and houses. So my parents built several houses, and our kind of family activity on a Sunday afternoon was to drive around looking at show houses, because in Durban, that's what people did. They sort of put a big sign outside their house if they wanted to sell it, and anyone could just walk in and have a look. And because my parents were so incredibly nosy about everyone else's houses, that's what we did. So I guess I was super aware, but I didn't start doing architecture because I wanted to design houses. I actually think it was just more like a logical, I kind of wanted to do fine art before I landed on housing, on architecture. And I think architecture just seemed to be a form of fine art, but much more useful. So it was a bit of a rational decision rather than a kind of, oh, I have to do this.
Yeah. And so so after your master's, where did you go then?
Well, I did, as a result of my master's, the lecturer who was sort of in charge of my dissertation, he suggested that I try and get a publishing deal to write about what my master's was about, which was about housing and urban design. So it's about doing housing in the context of sort of urban places. And at that time, there was just like really not very nice housing around at all that was new. And I put this proposal together and I got a publishing deal. So it was great. I mean, if only it was so easy now. And I spent about a year writing that book, and I illustrated it as well. And while I was doing that, I was consulting with various, so I was kind of working freelance. And that was really great. But it all sort of merged into the sort of urban design work.
What was your book called?
It was called Front to Back, A Design Agenda for Urban Housing. And it's actually still available on Amazon.
I think it's on my bookshelf.
Yeah. I have sold quite a few copies over the years, and extraordinarily, you can still buy it. So that's good. It's still in print.
Even better.
Yeah. And then after having sort of been a sort of pure urban designer and written about it and done all of that and got made quite a few contacts in the industry by being a consultant to CABE. So CABE was called the Centre for Architecture and the Built Environment, and it was set up by the last Labour government, and it was a fantastic way of ensuring really good quality design. And so I was one of their enablers. So I was traveling around the country talking to various local authorities about how to do their town centre revivals and all that kind of thing. And then, of course, Cape was just destroyed when Labour left. So at that time, I decided to go and work back in practice again. But then I decided to go straight into an architecture practice because I didn't really want to not be an architect anymore. I wanted to do urban design and architecture. So I joined a practice that kind of had a multidisciplinary approach. It was mainly architecture, but I joined as their sort of head of urban design. So it put me in a really nice position to work on really big housing projects.
And was that the one that you joined when you had just found out you were pregnant
Yes.
with your daughter? Because I remember you telling me the story that you
Yeah.
literally had found out you were pregnant, and you kind of you felt like you had to tell them
Yeah,
before you
yeah.
took the
So
job.
I mean that so baby number one, Daisy, was a bit difficult to get, and so we assumed that baby number two would be the same, but she just turned up, and of course we were delighted. But I had just applied. I'd just written to HTA, and I just said to them, I want to work for you. I didn't like answer any job ads or like their office was down the road, and I kind of went, I like you, you're down the road, I want to work for you. And I basically just told them that they should hire me, which they did. They offered me a job, and then literally like a week later, I found out that I was pregnant. So I sort of thought, well, of course I have to tell them. I can't like pretend I didn't know. And so I did, and I love the story because they said they'd come back to me, and I felt like 3 weeks that I waited. It was probably only 3 days, and I was cursing and spitting, and this is so outrageous. And then, of course, they came back and said, "No, no, no, come on, we still want you." So they've always been well respected for that in my world, and I worked for them for it must have been like 6 or 7 months, and then I had Hannah, and then I had to go back quite soon after. So I ended up only having 4 months maternity leave. But
Yeah, so your husband
luckily,
was in
they
a
were,
sort of industry that was up and down, and so I
yeah,
remember you had to go back
yeah.
much
But
earlier.
it was okay because they were just down the road, and they were pretty friendly, so it was okay.
Yeah, so you were able to juggle it.
Mm.
And from there, did you set up Stitch?
Well, I was there for 4 years, and then I got Ants My Pants again, and decided to start Stitch when I took some money out of the house mortgage, and paid for the first 6 months just to be able to operate. And then we just started winning all these projects with our client, and they absolutely loved us. So for the first few years, we're a tiny team just winning these massive projects.
So at the beginning, you had a good beginning, but then I know it hasn't been all
Oh,
plain sailing.
yeah. Well, I mean, ask anyone who's doing housing right now. It's not that easy. And because we're so specialized in sort of, when I say housing, it's not houses, it's sort of big housing schemes, sort of mixed tenure. So it's social housing and private housing, subsidizing that. And yeah, it's pretty much the market's just like fallen away. So the interest rates and inflation and everything just like a perfect storm, and then also new fire regulations and uncertainty around those. So our industry's been really hit quite hard, and a couple of really dear friends who've got brilliant practices have had to kind of close down. So I'm kind of proud that we're still standing. And
Mm.
now, thankfully, it's a good time to be talking because thankfully things are looking more positive now. So
In particular, now we know that we need more housing than ever. Like
yeah.
it's a fact that we're not building enough houses in the
Well,
UK,
it's
and
now
so
top of the political agendas. Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't used to
It's
be.
how did COVID treat you? How did you get through that? Did it slow down or speed up or?
It was actually one of our better years. We had enough work. We furloughed a couple of people for a couple of weeks, then brought them back again. And I mean, we just ticked over. We kind of predicted what was going to happen, so we had everything set up, and from one day to the next, we were all working from home, and it was all fine. So
And
our systems just
at
worked. Yeah.
At what point, so from there you decided to set up your charity. When did you,
No,
well, when did you do that and why did you decide to do that?
I kind of there seems to be like a 4-year thing where I need to have a new project. So
Yeah.
actually no, maybe it was 2016 that I decided to re-qualify here and go through that whole palaver.
Which
But
the architectural
yeah. So I was
qualifications?
fully
Yeah,
qualified in South Africa, but to be able to call Stitch Architects, I had to qualify here. And I didn't, I thought I would just be able to do the professional exams, but I had to do
yeah.
the entire 6-year rehash of the whole course. And
Oh my gosh.
when I went to these sort of part one, which is like the undergrad um, interviews with the ARB, they kind of said, well, you can't just show us all your work at Stitch because we don't know that you've done that. So my mother had to go fishing around in the archives to find my thesis, and it was ridiculous. So I think that was around 2016. That was my project, get qualified here as well, and
Yeah.
then I think 2020, everyone sort of made decisions that they might not have made. It wasn't really because we were feeling very flush at all. I was just sitting there. I remember sitting in my lovely country house, thinking this is not fair. I'm in a great place here. This is not really affecting me, and we need to do something to just make a difference. Because the world's bigger than our own little worlds. So I decided for Stitch to support a student. And I kind of looked at all the London universities that are offering architecture courses, and I kind of honed in on Central St Martin's, which is part of UAL, because their whole attitude and mission statement sort of really kind of resounded with my thoughts. And they were then responsible for selecting a student on the criteria that I had set.
What was the criteria?
The criteria was for someone to come from a low income household that wouldn't basically have the opportunities that someone else would have. So the money wasn't to pay for the university fees or to pay for accommodation. So that the idea was is that the student had to come from London, so would be living at home anyway, and wouldn't be to cover the student fees because anyone can get a student loan. But it'd be to cover the costs that make it really difficult architecture is a really difficult course to study because you have to pay for materials, go and study trips, going in and out to the studio. Transport in London's really expensive. It's just a lot of students we've met with all the sort of universities in London, and they've said that the number of first year students that drop out is huge. It's like 30%. And a lot of the time it's people from different cultural backgrounds or from low income households where their families have never studied architecture. Like they're the first in their generation first generation to go to university. So it's about providing a support system as well, not just money. All the assessors at the university agreed with me that this young man should get the award. He's really, really shy, but really talented. Just lives with his mother, his single mother, sort of working long hours, etc. Just the kind of story, the kind of person that you really want to support. And he's now finishing third year, so he's finishing his degree now. And then after that, I thought, oh, this is so great. But obviously you can't do this again; it's way too expensive. So that's when I thought, oh, I'll just start a charity. So that wasn't as easy as I thought. And it was quite painful actually setting it up and getting trustees on board, and all of that. And then I remember the day that I sent, like at last, I sent the email to all my contacts saying, this is what I've done. This is a charity I've started. I'm looking for support. And I got some replies like really quickly from like industry leaders. So it was really encouraging. And in the first year, we managed to raise £100,000. So it was absolutely fantastic. But that was in 2021 when things were still a little bit more fluid financially. 2023, we dropped the amount that we were actually going to offer. So if we were offering £5,000 a year instead of 10, because we worked out that way we could support more students. So we've got 7 altogether. Got a lovely photograph of them all together. Had a party at the end of last year. It was brilliant.
Was there something in your own background that that made you think, I want to help people from less advantageous backgrounds?
I've actually thought
Something in
about
your
that.
experience?
It does, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. Like there's seven youngsters, walking around London in a better place because of what I've done. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I was lucky to get some charitable money from a philanthropist when I went to university as well
Oh,
through a
really?
chance
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
helped
And it
me,
really helps,
gave me
doesn't it?
money. Yeah, and it really did help because I was
Mm,
paying my way through university and I
yeah.
had to apply to this foundation and I got this money and it helped with books and things like that. So it was
Mm.
amazing. I felt
Yeah.
very lucky and I didn't have such a debt that I could have had
Yeah.
when I finished, which I suppose is takes me to my next question, which is what does your average day look like?
Um, well, my average days I come to work and I hang out
Yeah.
with my team. I actually we've just moved to a lovely new office in Charlotte Street, so I love coming to work now. I used to work from home more, but now so we have this sort of rule of not a rule because we don't, we're pretty flexible people, but we try and be in the office at the same time for 3 days a week. It turns out that we often here for 4 days a week. And then I get into work by 9, and if I've got enough time, I walk to work, which is great. So it's like a 50-minute walk into town, or I get on the bus. Either way, I listen to. I'm now completely devoted to Audible, and I've listened to so many stories. And I just lose myself completely in whatever I'm listening to, whether I'm walking or on the bus, which I absolutely love. And at lunchtime, I do the same thing. I just go walking around for an hour so I can listen to my books again if I've got time. And yeah, and then I'm just here with my team, and we all work very collaboratively together. So it's very different depending on what the day holds, what deadlines we have, who needs to do what. And I'm sitting at my lovely desk, usually doing the sort of more sort of not reports, but the sort of more narrative side of the work. My team is much more sort of technical. They actually produce the drawings, and I do a lot of design review. And my team's now really, really sort of very good, very well trained. I have people who've been with me for many years now, and they kind of have the same sort of work ethic. We've got great systems. So my roles become nicer and nicer, actually, because I don't actually have to be responsible for delivering everything. My team actually
Yeah.
does that, and I'm just sort of adding the extra flavor and the quality on top, which is a great place to be.
And is there a day where you think, what's a great day? What does a great day look to you like?
I absolutely love solving problems. And in our work, which is sort of really complex, big urban projects, there's so many people to keep happy. And it's so there's always some technical or some political or economic or some issue that needs to be resolved. And there's always a conflict. And I love it when I can come up with an idea or a solution that makes people sit up and go, oh, yeah, that works. So that makes me really happy, and it doesn't happen, all the time. But I guess it's about being able to read the room and understand what people really want. What they're saying and what they really want is not always the same thing.
And have you had some in your career, some real wins where you felt really great about, like, for example, are there, I know there's whole building projects that you've worked on where you feel really good about those?
Yeah, well, there is a project that I'm really 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 proud of. So it basically started off when I was working at HTA, and it was one of the sort of big bids that I was leading, and it was for a big estate regeneration project in Ealing, and I was working on the bid, and the master plan for the bid was like thousands of homes, and I came up with the sort of whole idea of what it should be called. And at the time, Hannah was like 6 months old. And I remember joking and saying, oh, it's such a long project. By the time she's doing her A levels, it'll be finished. She is going into A levels next year, and it's nowhere near finished because things always take much longer. But when I started Stitch, we got the commission to do one of the first phases. And that included a kind of community project, like a big mural on one of the walls of the building. And I absolutely loved that project, and sort of getting embedded in the community, and sort of really not just sort of having this sort of, oh, here's some public art over here, like a little statue or whatever. It was actually designed into the building, and that was a great process. And then we got commissioned to do two more phases, and we've got potentially starting another one soon. So we're the only architect in the whole regeneration project that's done four phases. I mean, it's so big that there's several architects who have done various things, but it's just really amazing to see how the place has changed over time. So it's been 12 years,
Well,
and there used to be these massive buildings with murals all over them because they were kind of earmarked to be demolished. So local artists sort of use them as canvases for their own work, and I actually commissioned a photography study of the existing buildings myself because no one else was doing it, and the art on these buildings was incredible. So I've got this amazing collection of wonderful photos of what it used to be like. And then I'm kind of really proud of the buildings that we've done there, because they're not sort of they're not kind of big shouty buildings, but they just make it feel normal and nice. They're sort of, the pavements are wide, and there's trees and lovely brick buildings with balconies, and it's sort of not like I'm going to go, oh, look what I did, look how shiny this is. It just sort of feels good. And when I go there, and like on a summer's day, there's some of our buildings are overlooking a park and all these people in the park, and I just go, wow, this is amazing. So that kind of thing feels really good.
do you have to do lots of community consultation when you go into these projects? Do you go and talk
Yeah.
to local communities?
Yeah, so this one in Ealing, every project we've had to kind of present to the sort of they have a design committee. The community have a design committee, and they they approve the selection of the architects. So obviously the developer will kind of put forward us or whoever they've selected. But the community has to sort of say, yes, we're happy with it. So we always meet with them. And then for every project, there's always a sort of public exhibition. In every scheme, there's always loud voices of opposition. The people who are supportive are usually the quiet ones that don't come. And so I've had many years of experience talking to people. There's a project that we did in Bromley, and we had in the middle of the high street, we had this sort of caravan with an exhibition. This was years ago. And I literally it was really, really hot, and I was standing in this caravan, and I had people shouting at me because they were just going like, how can you do this? And because it's like a really big building, but you have to do big buildings because people need homes. And another occasion I've had a man literally shouting. He came up to me and said, I'm going to find out where you live. And he was like really threatening. So experiences like that are quite memorable. But then at the same time, you meet people who go, wow, this has changed. Having this new home has just changed my life completely, and it's wonderful to hear. So it's worth it. And it's also like, why should we just be able to go and build stuff without talking to people? So
Yeah, yeah. I know. A few council kind of or local community meetings I've ever been to. It's very impressive what a diverse bunch of voices you get, and how
yeah.
I'll think something's a good idea, and everyone has a
No
view.
one's ever going to agree on it's like politics, isn't it? I mean, you might like a certain party or person, but there's always something wrong with them, and you just have to take the good with the bad.
And then what about your own sort of support systems? Because obviously, like me, you don't have family here.
Yeah, yeah.
We've had to make our own families, I
Mm,
suppose.
mm.
Is there sort of support systems that you have in place in terms of that, you know, local things with family that you'd
No,
normally do?
no. I mean, that is something that I kind of worry about quite a lot. Like, if we weren't here, what would happen, kind of thing. And it's just almost a relief that the girls are getting old enough to sort of, for that to be less of a worry. Because like when they were small, I thought, oh, they would have to. If something happened to us, they would have to go to South Africa or something dramatic like that. But yeah, no, we've literally from day one we've paid for every single bit of support we've ever had. So yeah, that's just the way it is, and we're so used to it. It's just we're a very small family. So yeah, it's been fending for
Yeah.
ourselves pretty much.
No, it makes it hard when you're scattered like we
I
are.
don't, yeah, I don't really know any different though. So I kind of look
Mm.
at other people sort of enviously and go, oh, it must be so great to have such a big family. And then they all complain about their families. And I go, no, you shouldn't do that. But then, there's a lot of politics, I guess, as well for you too connected. So yeah, there are pros and
What about
cons.
your sort of off time? Do you do any physical activity or do you?
Yeah, and I go for, so I started 2 years ago, I started running, I think pretty much like everybody else, couch to 5Ks. Haven't got much beyond that. I sort of look at, I'm on lots of Facebook groups of people who love running and do these marathons and everything. And I just go, wow, don't know how you do that. But I kind of think all I want to do is just stay fit. So every time I go for a run, I say that was a bad run. I say to myself, well, it's better than no run. So that's what I do. I would go for a bad run 3 times a week. So, but it's good because I kind of feel like I feel okay. I feel healthy. And I do a lot of walking as well. So that's
Yeah.
I'm not really a team sport player. When I was younger, I played netball and tennis and all that kind of stuff. But I prefer just to go for a run with my own thoughts.
And speaking of your own thoughts, what about your sort of mental training or mindfulness or meditation or anything like that?
So I did actually, I think when was it? So I'm 55 now, and I think when I was in my late 40s, early 50, I was kind of going, I can't remember what the issues were, but I wasn't nearly as comfortable with life as I am now. I actually feel really, really good about my life right now. But at the time I thought, oh, well, I should do all these meditation type things. So I got the Headspace app and I, you know, did all sorts of things. None of them, lots of self-help books and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe they helped at the time. I don't really know, but I'm really not into that kind of thing. So I love reading, absolutely love reading. So I've always got a physical book on the go and a audible book on the go. And now I've in the last year I've started writing as well, and that's just like complete like joy. It's made
Yeah.
my
So tell
life.
me about that.
Well, I don't again, it's one of those things I don't know how it landed, but I think I bought a book called Save the Cat long time ago, and
Yeah.
it's do you know that? Do you know that?
We've got it at home. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why I bought it, but I just happened to. I remember I was having dinner with Brian, and I was saying, "Oh, I'm just bored. Something's got to change." And so that evening, I went and I looked at this book, and I started reading it, and I thought, "Oh." And then I don't actually know when I physically started writing, but I got a few ideas, and I started writing a novel, which I'm kind of halfway through now. And I did a course with Curtis Brown, which I had to be selected for. I don't know, maybe there were only the same number of people who applied, who knows. But it was a great experience. And I've made some friends just like virtually with the group that I was with. And they sort of scattered all over the world. And I now share my work with a woman in New York State, and she's in her 60s, and she's a creative writing lecturer at university. And she and I work the course together, and so she reads my stuff and I read hers. And we're also excited because people from Canada, America, quite a few people from the UK, Ireland, and our tutor, who we absolutely adored, is launching a book in Cambridge in a few weeks' time. And my friend in America said, "Well, I'm going to go to this launch in Cambridge." All the way from America, and she said, "Anyone else want to come?" And it turns out the entire group is going to converge in Cambridge for a night, and I'm kind of really excited about that because there's all these people who we've been talking books about with. So I
And
hope
do
I
you,
like them.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure you will. You've got so much, you've got so
So
much
much
in common.
invested.
And
Yeah.
is it like a support network? Do you give each other things
Yeah,
to
well, we've got a
read or do you?
WhatsApp group, and people
Yeah.
just spew stuff out. It's not really support; it's just sort of asking questions and sharing. Have you seen this or whatever? But Natalia, who I've kind of made this connection with. She and I chat more, and it's really great. Like we talk about our characters as though they're people, So she's writing about two girls, and I'm writing about one girl, and they, we talk about them as though they're members of our family. So it's quite sweet.
Yeah. So many people I know who write or say that, particularly, with a novel, that it's really helpful to have a group. I know
Yeah.
you don't describe it as a support group, but it is a bit,
Yeah.
it's sort of a group that enables you to, and I
Bounce.
suppose in a way,
Mm.
yeah, you motivate each other because if someone else is doing it, you're doing it too. So
Yeah,
it
well, we
keeps
were doing
you,
this course together, and every week we had to critique each other's work, and we had to post our. So we had to. There was a skill in actually editing or critiquing someone's work, and
yeah.
no one was judging. You weren't getting marked or anything, but like people were writing about my stuff, like really detailed comments, and I felt like I had to do the same for them every week. It was really full on actually, but yeah. I think you learn as much by reading other people's work and giving them feedback as you do by writing yourself.
Oh, that's really
So it's
interesting.
very enriching.
Yeah. And so what next? Have you got a sort of deadline for that, or are you just taking it as you get go?
Well, I keep on wanting to join another course just because it's so much fun. But I think I just need to finish the first draft. Problem is that I can't. A lot of advice is just like get a first draft out and then do the second draft, which is where all the editing happens. But I tend to edit a lot as I go, so it's quite slow. But when I get a burst, then I can write for days. So I'm currently in one at the moment. Just
Well, so when do you, that was my next question, is when do you write?
on the weekends, and then pretty much I often kind of just talk into my phone when I'm walking, just for general ideas, and then I'll write them up just watching TV with my laptop. So I pretty much write whenever I can. I've got a notebook in my bag, scribble stuff all the time. But in terms of like long periods of writing, I don't do it during the day on a work day. Just it's just like a rule that I don't, because once I start, I can lose hours without even thinking. So I pretty much just do it on the weekends.
And so, and that's your, in a way, is that also your downtime, like
Oh yeah.
your,
That's I look
your,
forward to it so much. Yeah, I love
yeah.
it. I've got my studio at the bottom of the garden, and I literally spend hours down there. And I kind of look at my watch, and it's got dark, and I don't even know what's happened. But I kind of feel quite guilty sometimes because I'm so involved in this story that's completely in my head. Like literally, it doesn't exist. It's just in my head. And I start talking about my character to the family, and they just go like, "What?" And often asking them all for advice because Brian's a copywriter and with very little patience, and Daisy's a almost 18-year-old, sort of 1 year younger than my character. So I often ask them about the kind of language that they use and all that kind of thing, and it's just all good research, really.
Yeah. And it's interesting, we met properly, I suppose. We cemented our friendship through a book group. So
Yes,
we've got,
exactly. Yeah.
spent so much
Long
time
history.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, been involved with books. Well, I'm very excited to see the results of
Well, don't
that.
don't hold your breath. It'll
Um,
take some
uh,
time.
so just to move on to the sort of, I suppose, the last chapter of this is just to sum up. I know it sounds morbid, but I'm always very fascinated by what people would want to do when people look at the, if you're at the end of your life and you're looking back, what would you want to have achieved in your life, like it was your obituary?
I really don't care what people say about me after I've died. It's this kind of
Yeah,
funny thing. It's just like I've gone, so why would I care? But I think it's about leaving a legacy rather, now and ongoing. Yeah, 'cause I think it's more important to do things that you're proud of every day rather than just like look back at a whole life.
yeah,
So like if my family are happy or my daughters are happy, you're always as happy as your least happy child, aren't you? So I'm I would love to be a great grandma. I always joke about that, but I always go, I'm gonna be the one, I'm gonna be the one who's gonna be great. But I also at the same time don't want them to have kids for another 10 years. So I have to keep myself really fit and healthy for like when I'm in my 60s and 70s, so I can be super grand. That's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And I would also like my business to sort of to have legs, forever.
Do either of your daughters look like they're going to follow you in your footsteps,
Oh no,
career-wise?
no,
Completely
not
different.
at all. Yeah, I wouldn't encourage. I mean, if they really wanted to, I wouldn't discourage it, but they haven't really gone in that direction. So, yeah.
And my last question is, because it's what you've done is amazing. The fact that you've set up a business, you've by yourself, you've just you've set it up and you've kept it going successfully, and you've set up this charity. Have you got any advice to other people who are thinking about doing something themselves along the same lines, not necessarily within your architecture and urban design world, but just setting up their own business?
I think you have to you have to have the kind of personality to do that. I mean, there's a lot of risk involved, and I think I just have an entrepreneurial type of character. So, but I think that the times that I've been happiest is when I've got a project. And sometimes the project is work. I mean, it's just like for me, it's one long project. But I guess if I was working for someone else, I would really want to have some like a side hustle, like something else that I was doing to keep myself occupied. But it's difficult to know. I mean, I don't really have like this sort of thumping social life, so like some people just might not have time, that if they've got a full-time job and they have a great social life and a busy family, they might just not have time. But I've just found myself getting more time as the years go by because my children become more independent. But I just think that it's good to fill your life up with new things. And I might write for the next 10 years and not ever publish anything, but I'm enjoying it. And I think that's the most important thing. Someone said on one of the thousands of podcasts that I listen to is that if you only write because you feel like you have to because that's what you like doing, then that's good. You should keep writing. But if you're writing to get published, then just like forget it. So I'm not writing to get published. It would be a wonderful side effect, and I'm just like enjoying it. So I think if you do decide to do something else, you've got to love it because otherwise there's just no point.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's very wise. Oh, well, thank you so much, Sally. You've been wonderful. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Your One Precious Life and check out my newsletters on Substack. Thank you very much.